Welcome to Punchline Talks, the business breakfast briefers. I'm Mark Owen, and each week I invite a panel of business experts to review the morning newspapers, find out what's going on in their own individual businesses and their own individual business sectors, and finally, what's caught their eye in this week's Punchline. Before I start, I'd like to thank our fantastic sponsors. Hazelwood's Accountants and Business Advisors also make fantastic coffee. And we have today on the panel, we've got Daniel O'Neill, CEO of Procook. The company has a HQ at Waterwells Business Park, employs 700 staff with 57 stores and approximately a turnover of 65 million. We got Christie back on the show. He's the CEO and founder of Neon Play, a mobile game studio making mighty fine games for Apple's App Store for Google Play. He has so far over 170 million downloads, based in Cirencester with 25 staff and a turnover of 67 million. And his best-selling game is Roller Splats. Hopefully we'll play that. We got Jonathan Viney, director and founder and owner of JV Consultancy. He's a super sales guru. He's also a Punchline business expert, and he's on the board of trustees for the Pied Piper as well. And last and never least, we got Talitha Nelson. She is the CEO of Gloucestershire Community Foundation, who's delivered over £2 million over 2 years to 350 charities across Gloucestershire. Okay, let's share the screen for courtesy of the BBC. We'll find out what's making the headlines. So today we got the Daily Mail. Britain's turn a corner, so now cut taxes. The Daily Express, it's official. We are winning inflation battle, they reckon. The Daily Telegraph, stop stalling tank steel. NATO allies tell the Germans. The Metro will level up and up away, and as angry as Sunak gets onto Air Force One to jet off to Leeds. The Guardian, Tories areas allocated more cash for levelling up fund. Gloucestershire didn't get anything. The Eye, EU wants Starmer to become the British PM. Not a big surprise there. The Financial Times, central banks vow to stay the course on high rates until inflation is tamed. The Times, Hunt wants 5p fuel duty cut to run a year longer. The Mirror, 3 cops accused over child abuse images. The Sun, no one is above the law. And finally, the Daily Star, it's now or never, singing the bus driver. Anyway, Elvis is my favorite. We'll leave it at that. Okay, welcome to the panel. Welcome to Punchline Talks. We're going to start with you today, Talitha. So what have you picked out from the papers, please, or online?
Well, obviously Jacinda has resigned. It's really interesting, actually. I've followed her career because I'm a dual nationality with Australia, and my husband's dual nationality with New Zealand. So we keep very close eye on what goes on over there. And I've been really impressed with her leadership. But do you know what's really, really frightening is just the amount of threats our female politicians get. The threat levels have gone up 3 times in the last 3 years. You know, you just cannot believe when someone is trying to do their best for their country, the amount of abuse they get. And, you know, whether it's anti-vaxxing, whether it's her firearms laws she's bringing in, the amount of pressure. She was our youngest leader in the whole world. I think so impressive going in at the age she did, really advocating for women in business. She was a breath of fresh air in terms of her leadership. And to launch a budget, a full budget based on well-being and mental health was just, you know, revolutionary. She's just done, I think, an amazing job. You never, ever are going to do what you want to do in politics. I think you can have the best of intentions, but it's just frightening the amount of pressure on our politicians and people in position, the threats that you get, where I think 5 men have been arrested, is insane. I just find it disheartening. She's been really honest. Instead of clinging on to power like most politicians, she's just said, my tank is empty. I'm done. And I think she's resigned really gracefully. I've never seen a politician resign that gracefully before, but I just feel having gone through some of the worst things in history. I mean, she's gone through COVID, mosque shootings, a volcanic eruption, earthquakes. she couldn't have really gone through much more. So I'm very sad to see her go. I think politics are in a desperate position where we have lost trust. There is, whether it's tax evasion or something going on that comes out at some point, and trust is constantly eroded. I found her a breath of fresh air. So I'm incredibly sad that she's gone. I think she really tried to embrace modern values, and I'm very sad she's going. And it's a sad day for politics.
It is a sad day, but a lot of people wouldn't have been. They didn't think too badly of losing trust, though, did they? Remember when she was in power? So that's moving on swiftly. No, I totally agree with you. It is a sad day for politics. It really is. Anyway, let's go over to Ollie. Thanks for that, Talitha. Ollie, what have you picked out from the papers? You were there nice and early, there in Cirencester, queuing up. Fantastic. Oh, all the red tops. You're switched off, mate. You're mute.
Sorry, I'm a red top man. I love the tabloids. So I picked out 3 stories. One actually was similar about Talitha, not that Talitha said about Jacinda Ardern. And I think there was one quote actually, which I'm going to read out, which she said, "I hope in return I leave behind a belief that you can be kind but strong, empathetic but decisive, optimistic but focused." And I think there's so much, all the TV business stuff you see with Dragon's Den and Alan Sugar is all macho, be really rude to people. And I think leadership doesn't have to be about that in business. And I think more people who actually believe that you can be empathetic and be human and treat people with respect would be a good thing. In the Mirror, I picked up a story about one of the oldest shops in the world to shut down. They're 242 years old. A store called Even Ramshaw in Louth in Lincolnshire. And obviously the high street is very tricky. And Daniel, you've got lots of shops, you understand this. But I think what it does show is that there is a place in the high street for shops, because we all still love to physically shop. But retailers have got to really make it an appealing prospect, to make the effort to park your car, go into town and shop. And some shops, when you go in, your heart sings, doesn't it? But others, your heart sinks. And it's just everything about display, about service, about the product offering. But I think it's a challenging time for the high street, but there is still nothing better than going into the shop rather than going onto Amazon. And my final story was in the Daily Star, and it's about the mafia. So yes, that's not good, but there's a great headline here with Marlon Brando saying, "We'll make him a carbon neutral renewable energy contract offer he cannot refuse," which I thought was just a nice play on The Godfather. And it's about eco-mobsters raking in cash from solar energy. And it's interesting, my brother's thinking about putting in some solar at home because of obviously the cost of fuel, etc. He is saying it used to be take 7 years to pay back your investment in solar panels, but because fuel prices have gone up so high, it's now a 3-year return to do it. And I don't know if enough people are looking at solar, or if there are enough companies out there offering it, or there's enough information about putting in solar, but it feels like a no-brainer if it's a 3-year return on investment. Anyway, that's my red top insight.
Red top roundup. Well, I'm a big fan of The Sun, by the way. I get it all the time. And the skill of The Sun is to write a story in the least amount of words possible, which takes some doing, I can tell you. And we try and do it. No, thanks ever so much. Fantastic roundup for there. Daniel, let's go over to you then, please. Funny enough, we're obviously talking about retail, so it's a nice link over. What's your take on the news, please, and what have you picked out?
Yeah, obviously we saw this morning retail sales continuing to drop, unfortunately. And obviously restated November. So it's a difficult game, as we everything costs are continually going up for retail. I mean, it will be interesting to see what happens with our rates revaluation on the 1st of April. It was good to see that the transitional relief is now not being used for when a property drops in value, which obviously was always a very painful. But I know sort of where I opened some shops in the last couple of years that the rent I've paid is sort of around half of what the previous rent for that unit was. But do I see that the rates will drop by half for those retail units? I suspect not. And in the same vein, I've taken advantage. The rates on our sort of head office, non-retail space, has hardly moved at all. Even though that the sort of the sort of rent has gone from probably £6 up to £8 for warehouse space, so a third increase. And I suspect that won't be that also, you know, I will gain on that one. But it does still feel that retail gets a kicking quite a lot. Obviously, the increase in it's a very much service sector. We're at living wage, but you know, even if you're not at living wage, there's a sort of around £1 increase in those salaries, £1 an hour increase for those salaries for people working in retail, around 42 pence of which will go to the government. So it, you know, it does seem whichever way you go, the government seems to be just taking more and more money out of retail. And I wish we could put in more people. You know, I wish we could put in more people just to create that environment. Hopefully, Talitha, you enjoyed your shopping experience with us, and the service was great.
Absolutely.
They do make it. They do try to make it as difficult as possible, I think, for retail.
I totally agree.
Well, and hospitality, I think.
Hospitality, yeah. Service industry, yeah.
Service industry is tough.
It
And
is.
recruitment is one of the biggest challenges, just trying to get staff in the first place.
Yeah.
There's a story in the Sun today as well. The business pages is boo-hoo tears as sales are hit. So again, predominantly online retail has been hit. And I've got the feeling it's a lot to do with Royal Mail strikes just before Christmas.
Oh no, we definitely saw a dip. As DPD and I mean Every and DPD and the other carriers, you know, really got it in the neck pre-Christmas. But all they were just trying to do was pick up volume that they had no intention of wanting to pick up, because Royal Mail went on strike.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you know, the thing is that I was talking to a postie the other day, and he was telling me the price of a first class ticket, and you're getting a third class service. He said, "There's no way they're delivering the next day delivery. That is completely rubbish. But you're obviously paying for that." Anyway, thanks ever so much for that, Dan. Obviously, we'll come back to you later.
Just on a positive, I have to say I was in Cheltenham the other day, and I opened a store on the promenade probably 18 years ago, which is closed now. It looked amazing. It's the first time I've really seen the promenade, because all the shops have filled to the end. It's looking fantastic, and it's taken years. It's been so depressing seeing so many empty shops. And I did pop in and just have a look and chat to staff, and I think I went into Mint Velvet. They were so busy, they were rushed off their feet, and business was booming. And I have to say, I was so pleased to see one of our most iconic streets in Gloucestershire doing very well.
And of course, the new Dobbies will be opening up very soon as well. Thanks ever so much to that, Talitha. Let's give Jonathan a go. Hey, Jonathan, thanks for joining us as well.
Hi, Bob. Well, I went a mixture of red and black tops. Oh, you can't see it, can you? So
there we go.
Some of the Daily Express and the Telegraph, but I couldn't find a story in there. One that I did find, which I suppose takes some of us back a few years, is they talk about recycling bottles now. You'll get 20p for returning a bottle or a can. And you think, well, years ago, that was a normal thing. You'd scrabble around on a Saturday or Sunday to go to the off-license back of the pub to convert the bottles in for a few bars of Mars bars, etc. And I reflected that from the point of view of my area of expertise, which is sales. And I have a phrase that salespeople do what you inspect, not what you expect. And it's a thing in life where we get motivated to do things. So the government's encouraging people to do things by a simple reward. And in sales, I quite often look at companies who are potentially could be very successful, but their sales people's rewards and what they're driven by aren't reflected in what the company wants to achieve.
No,
There's really simple fixes that can be made, because particularly salespeople, and it's not only about cash, sometimes it's about reward and recognition. And there's a government there just applying some basic principles to actually get us to do things. So I thought that's quite interesting.
What about, it was the old lemonade bottles, wasn't it?
That's it, yeah.
I'm old enough, and they used to deliver lemonade and cherryade. You hear it clangling down the road, and you take all the empties back, and you get a pound and buy a packet of crisps with them or something.
It was bar, wasn't it? B-A-R-R. I remember it well.
Yeah.
That's it. Okay, sorry, Jonathan. What else picked out?
Well, I was just saying, and with things, sometimes old principles actually are the same. So with sales, I've got nothing new to say. It's been around for centuries, but people keep trying to reinvent things, and technology comes along and certain bits of tradition. And the next bit of story I picked up was actually I think it was in the Western Daily Press. It was saying most children are now born out of marriage.
Oh.
And it was something I've kind of reflected on, and I look at, well, we're in the state of the world, but let's look at the UK and some of the elements we have. Is that, and I'm not answering a question, I'm more asking a question, is that affecting the world in terms of the way that some people have been brought up and some standards that people work to, and the way that the economy is? And I was at Belmont School earlier this week, and Kevin Dade met the headmaster of that, and we met some of the children, and it's just phenomenal the work he does and the rest of his staff. There's 180 children, there's 80 staff, and they came and sang a little choir, and you've got these people that are being looked after, but our families looking after the families they should be looking after. And if we did put effort into a bit more of giving people a guidance of what is right and wrong in the world, would we be in a slightly different place? So just something to think about.
No, well, thanks ever so much for that. It's a really great collection. You've out all shone me today, actually. My story I picked up today was actually about a burger. So just for it was flipping hell. This guy built a burger. If you can see it there, you can't really see it. But anyway, half of it is cooked and the other half is completely raw. And there's this website where they review burgers at football matches. And it goes to show that you can make money out of anything nowadays, can't you? Right, anyway, thanks so much for all of those. Brilliant. Talitha, let's go back over to you, please. Quickly, can you tell us about the charity sector, your sector at this particular moment? What's it like?
Yeah, it's like every sector, it's tough. Charities are businesses, income has to go in. It needs to be able to pay for its services, wash its face, cover its overheads. And charities have been pre-pandemic, I guess, donations, say in a food bank, were at about 30%, and they've gone down to about 4% now. So charity donations have dropped dramatically, but the need is rising rapidly. So even just in Cirencester, so local food banks, you know, you've got nurses queuing, you've got 2 working parent families queuing. We're seeing trends we've never seen before, even through COVID. You know, 2 working parents have to earn around £45,000 to be able to pay their bills. That's a lot of people that are going to be affected. And what's really difficult is most of those people have never experienced having to go to a food bank before. So you've got shame, you've got embarrassment. So you may put it off, or you may find it very difficult to ask for help. So there's so much in terms of mental health, well-being, the connections that people have and the support people have, and then the charity workers themselves. I mean, this sector has always been overlooked. One of the reasons I've come in from business to be in this sector is to shine a light. I was volunteering in my personal life, wasn't really thinking of having it as a career, but the work that goes on is absolutely outstanding. I've seen some of the best business people running charities in our county that I've ever met. They're so savvy, they're so brilliant at what they do, but it's so overlooked. They're so undervalued. Whether it's the government doesn't funnel funds to charities, whether it's people not quite realizing that if we lose some of these charities, it will hit your own pockets. You know, these charities basically stop the NHS from breaking. They're already at a point of breaking. Our charities are the safety net of our society, and they're the social fabric of our society. So at the moment, charity donations are down, and it's also very important that charities, small grassroots community groups that don't have a professional fundraiser and someone bucket shaking around the county, that they're just tirelessly working, that we make sure donations get to them, because they are serving the most vulnerable across our communities and counties. So we have a big role to do. We support all causes, and we make sure we do huge amounts of research around need as well as our on the ground knowledge, and we try and share as much as we can with everybody if they want to give back. But actually, interestingly, mental health and well-being is really down, and we see the whole piece around mental health and well-being, and one of the best things to lift your mood and make you feel better is to give back. To give to a friend, give to family, give to community, give to a stranger. It's phenomenal what that can do for your brand, your business, your person, your individual. I've had a new donor come to me and said, I'm earning tons of money in the finance world. I'm about to get an enormous bonus and I feel utterly miserable. utterly miserable. And I just think, I want to come to you, I want you to deliver some money in the county, and I want to feel better about myself. And I said, brilliant, well, go and tell everyone to do that. So essentially, I think his wife has encouraged him to give back to community, because it's just part of his own mental health that earning all this money and working away isn't quite giving him the satisfaction. So big job to do in the county, and a lot of charities to support.
Thank you ever so much for that, Talitha.
Can I ask a question there, Mark?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Being obviously service industry, I mean, one thing that has been great over the last probably 5-6 years, since the government sort of did get, I mean, in above inflation increases in living wage, you know, for the last 5 years, and employment being higher, where's the disconnect between that and more people in that poverty trap?
So if you're looking at a couple earning £45,000 a year between
which
them,
is, I mean, if they're
it
both
sounds like a
full-time
lot.
work.
In my day, when Scott and I were together in our early 20s, I think my first management role at 20 whatever, I was on 15 grand a year, and we covered things, and salaries haven't increased that much, but you know, when you look at what you're earning and what the huge costs are, whether it's rent, bills, I mean, bills going up 3-4 times, food, I mean, a food shop, and already you're on the brink. So I think the stats are, if you're looking at how much savings you have, I think it's like maybe 1 month's worth of savings, if not any.
Yeah.
So if you're running on no savings, which the majority of the country do, and certainly certain age groups, if you're looking at the younger age groups, they've got nothing to fall back on. And so the moment you lose your job, or the moment you're not, you know, things go up, prices go up, costs go up, you're instantly going to be in trouble, and you're not going to have any safety nets. And that's the problem. There's just no safety nets.
Okay, thanks ever so much again. I think some good points there. I'd just like to add, actually, as I know you all very well, I know how generous you all give to charities. You know, JV with his charity golf day, and Ollie with all his bits and pieces, and Daniel, your beach stuff that you do as well. So, you know, big congratulations and well done to you guys as well. Just thought I'd point that out. Great work that you do as well, Talitha. Okay, let's move on, and let's go back over to you, Ollie. Hi, Ollie. Okay, Neon Play. What's the gaming market looking like at the moment? Because of cost of living, are people spending less on games? And you sort of have free downloads, don't you? What's the situation?
Yeah, I think the games industry is in an interesting place. I mean, we're in mobile, and obviously there's console and PC and handheld gaming. Most downloads are now free in mobile games, and they have been for quite a long time, because it's the way, in theory, you earn more money from a small percentage of people. We're trying to make games now which don't rely so much on advertising revenue, but rely more on in-app purchase. Part of that is because Apple have really turned the screw on Facebook with their privacy settings, and that's why Facebook's revenue has just bombed. And we've seen us from maybe spending 50-60% of our advertising revenue on Facebook to in the single digits now, I think it is, because it's just very hard to target, which is what you need to do with advertising. It's interesting that most of the stuff that we make never sees the light of day, apart from a tiny amount of people, because we test so many games before we find the hit games. It's very much a prototype and test model now in mobile, as opposed to just build the whole thing and then launch it, because you can't afford to do that. But it does mean we can be very creative with all ideas that we come up with. But then you need to be very scientific, using all the data to make objective, rational decisions, which I like, actually, because in the days gone by, we just make something and hope it works. But nowadays, we'll spend a few weeks making a prototype, test it, see how it works. And then if it's got good stats, we carry on. If it hasn't, we just chuck it in the bin. So it's an interesting place to be. It's very much a hit-based business, but you don't know quite when that hit's going to come. But it's fun trying.
I bet it is. So is there anything that you're sort of bringing out very shortly? A new game on the horizon that you could talk about?
Maybe, but I can't really say. But we have got something which is looking very positive on the initial stats. But I never get too complacent, because things which are looking good can bomb. But it's looking really exciting. So I'll let you know, Mark, when it comes out.
I hope so.
I think Mark would like to be one of your testers secretly, actually.
Hey, I play that flip football game all the time in the loo. One of my sins. My wife says, "Why are you in there so long?" Well, actually, I'm playing flip football. Thanks ever so much for that, Ollie. Great insight there. I'm going to go back over to you, Jonathan. Jonathan, obviously you've been a sales guy for quite some time. What's the sort of market like on the training front at the moment? The events that you're doing, are people coming back now? Are you seeing a lot more people face to face?
Yes, it's definitely last quarter of last year. Bear in mind, I'm quite a micro business, but I deal with lots of businesses. So I'm seeing people actually understanding. Well, there's people who realise that actually, if I put some effort into sales and help people train and mentor and coach them, I get better results. So it's not rocket science, but I kind of, my analogy is salespeople are no different from sports people. So Gloucester Rugby, bless them, we're going to play on Saturday. They would have spent 5 days being trained, coached, and actually preparing for the competition. And that's what salespeople constantly need to do. And I find that the more expensive the salesperson, the less support they get. And actually, they're the ones who need the support. A lot of it doesn't necessarily resolve around kind of the bits we discussed. But Ollie, your bit about testing and getting the numbers, sales becomes very, very simple when you just have a process. And if you measure everything in that process, you can see exactly where things are going wrong. And then you can make sensible decisions about what to change and to make it go through. I'm just doing some work yesterday with a fantastic organisation in Cheltenham that's created a cybersecurity where it scans your business from the outside in. So it looks like what a hacker is going to look at. And I've just said about how we can get the process from the marketing aspect to people seeing it, to then going through to the engagement part. And their investors absolutely love it because they can now see if we get these bits right and what's happening, more money be put into it. So positive, but it does take the people who run and own the businesses to realise they want to have a look at it. And that's the kind of bit of a hurdle. But in general, I'm seeing the vast majority of people I talk to are not seeing a dip. Some are plateauing, but some are seeing some positive order books going forward.
Well, it's funny you should say that because I wanted to add about the high street. I've been all over the high street delivering the magazine, and it's really looking fantastic. There aren't that many voids, as you rightly said about Montpellier. The only place I'd say in Gloucestershire that's struggling a little bit is Cinderford and Lydney. And they've always had a bit of a hard time. So, but there is some investment going, some level up fund going into Cinderford, so that might work it through. But you go to Cotswolds, and I was in Nailsworth last weekend. Oh my goodness! I spent around 150 quid in Nailsworth, a lot of them on socks. But it really is buzzing down there. And Cirencester as well, Ollie, isn't it? Cirencester's looking fantastic.
It is.
Yeah.
Stores come and go. I can't believe how many art galleries have opened. I know there's there all the time.
There's a very cool one that's just opened in Cricklade Street, which is quite raw, but it's got some great art in there.
Yeah, no, absolutely brilliant. And that brings me very nicely as a link to Daniel and retail there for Procook, Daniel. So how are the stores performing at the moment? What is the market like there for you?
It's interesting, isn't it? So, I mean, at one stage, obviously, when we were deep in pandemic, then we were obviously taking all of our money online. But just after that, where we had retail open, it did look like for a while that there had been that sort of momentum switch and people buying sort of kitchenwares and buying a lot of products, different types of products, had sort of converted to online shopping, and online shopping looked like it taken over from traditional retail. But we've seen a huge swing, and I just saw again this morning that all sectors now, around 25% is bought online. Which is about what kitchenwares is. So it's dropped, from about 45% back to around 25% over the last since reopening. So it's incredible that, as you say, people have a love. We do really like retail. We do like picking things up and taking them home with us. We don't, we are impatient when we buy online. If it's not there next day, why not? And I think retail is the ultimate sort of I want it now sort of thing. And it's interesting that we have migrated back that way.
Is there a big difference between sort of what men and women buy actually in your cook shops? You know, do like me, I seem to pick up wooden spoons a lot and knives and play around with that. And you know, is it what is it? Is there a difference?
I think what's interesting is that we're now around 40% men, and so I was chatting to the London DJ yesterday, and he appeals to a very young audience, but it's amazing how cool cooking now is as a youngster, which is such a great change in society. I think you know, COVID definitely that's definitely a sort of a positive that has come out of COVID, that we're all much more into cooking food from scratch rather than buying ready meals, which is that's a great way to be, I think.
What's your best-selling product now, Daniel?
I mean, kitchen and dining ware has still continued to really, I think, because of the demise of most of our department stores, which would have been the traditional place you'd go and buy dining ware, and you really do want to see it. And I think that that's been a growth sector for us, and for just this peak was the first time that it went over 20% of our sales online and in store. And then the next one for us, so the last sort of segment of kitchenwares is small electricals. So we sort of will get into that in this year and launch kettles and toasters, Procook kettles and toasters. So that's that's sort of the last the last sector that, and really we needed to get to high volume to be able to do that. It's quite an investment to launch into those products.
Wouldn't it not be? I talked to this is the reason why Asda and Tesco and Zanussi sort of felt they moved into washing machines and things. Of course, when you sell a consumable good, beans and things, they don't bounce back. You eat the beans, you throw them away. The trouble with an electrical good, it goes wrong, and then you need that returns. And
there is definitely a higher returns issue. We've been very conscious. The reason why it's actually taken us a little bit longer to get into it, because of COVID, all of the sort of traditional manufacturer trade fairs where you'd go and meet all these people haven't. So we're going to one in April, which will be the first time since 2019 or something. So it's it's a long time that we've not had that access to new manufacturers. That's very exciting for us. So that's taken longer, but so the people we're working with, we've sort of gone with a default where they're also working with sort of pretty significant brands, whether that's sort of Jewel-It or KitchenAid or Smeg. So I think when you go and set anything new, it's sort of nice to go with more, sort of spend a little bit more and go with those people are going to deliver for you.
Well, I tell you what, you just give me a breaking story for today, mate. Oh, that's pretty good. Thank you for that. Guys, we're kind of running out of time. I'm slightly over, but let's crack on. And just very, very quickly, what is the story that's caught your eye in this week's Punchline? Back to you, Talitha.
I've just got my dog in the background howling. So can you hear it?
Don't
Sorry,
worry.
I've just muted. Right. A couple of stories, but I'll just pick, as I said, I've found three, but I love, here we go. This is about trusteeship, and you've done a fantastic article on Esther Croft, who's been appointed trustee at Gloucester Culture Trust. Now, we've got 2,500 charities in the county, and a lot of charities need fantastic trustees. And I do get asked by people in business, how can we support a charity? And actually, it's not always about painting a room or, volunteering the old-fashioned way. A lot of charities need really good senior people to become trustees. A trusteeship is a really exciting role, as Jonathan has now taken up a post. It's so important. Governance is one of the highest. I mean, charities are governed higher than business, any sector. It's so highly governed. And one area, cybersecurity, which is generally completely overlooked and a massive risk, is you need a range of trustees with different skills on your board. It's so important. And I love the fact you've showcased a very successful woman in business, and she is giving her time back to be a trustee in an area that links to the development that she's doing. And I just think just encouraging trusteeship is absolutely vital. So thank you for highlighting a trustee role and somebody giving back to their community in a different way. It's not all about money. There's a lot of ways we can give back, and one of them is your skills.
Thanks ever so much for that. Ollie, what have you picked out from this week's Punchline?
It's Hub 8 in Cheltenham, which has just had a major shareholding acquisition by innovation company called Plexel, who've got places in London and Manchester, and they've acquired a majority in Hub 8. I don't know if you've been there, Mark, but it is just fantastic. We've obviously got GCHQ for cyber and everything else. And there's actually such a massive supply chain of companies feeding into GCHQ. If you can go there, it's just so alive. It's a co-working space, essentially, for cyber and tech companies. And it's just a very exciting place to be. And it's so nice to see it slap bang in the brewery quarter. Very cool companies doing amazing, clever stuff in Cheltenham. And so that's a really exciting story. And actually, by complete chance, I had lunch with Bruce, who runs it, 3 or 4 days before they got bored. He didn't tell me about it. You can tell there's a lot of exciting stuff going on there, and also that new co-working space behind the library in the Wilson Gallery as well. So there's some cool stuff going on in Cheltenham.
No, that's right. That's the MX Centre, and we did actually break that story about them being £2.5 million over budget as well. So it's a good move. That's a great move. I totally agree with you that they've sort of got some more money and backing behind them. Totally agree. Fantastic space. He's done a great job there, Bruce. Okay,
Bruce's retail background, I know him from Value Retail days when we used to work over at Value Retail, and so he's a good retailer and a good business person. It's brilliant to see what he's done with Hub 8. I was so impressed.
I can see a big interview coming on. Okay, thanks, Jonathan. I'm going to get back over to you. What story have you picked over from Punchline, please?
Well, I like the good news story you've put out about Creed Catering. So I know them reasonably well because they Chris Creed, and I remember when the pandemic hit, their business fell off a cliff, and luckily good reserves kept them going, but they adapted themselves. I remember pulling up and having my car filled full of goodies that they could sell instead of going to supermarkets, and now they've come back out and turned it around on the back of price inflation, which they've managed to pass on, but they've just done a very fantastic job in keeping a tight helm all the way through the rough seas, and then come out the other side in a very positive way. So very good.
It's funny to say that they were my business of the year this year, and Daniel's business was the business of the year last year. My choice. So anyway, you're right. £100 million turnover, completely pivoted the business during the pandemic.
Amazing.
That's off to them. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Daniel, what have you picked out for this week's Punchline, please?
I don't want to be too political about it, but the whole levelling up thing, I did sort of read, and I did get that it was I suppose a backhanded promise that it was just going to the north, and it appears that they're now selecting projects all over the country, which it does seem fairer, but maybe there was a slight bit of deception going on there, but that did it does seem a fairer solution, I have to say.
I think maybe it's panic in the Tory ranks, actually, that they've got to save the seats they've got, let alone the ones that are drifting off. Thanks ever so much. My story of the week is actually, I totally agree with you, Ollie. That was Plexel completed the acquisition, majority stakeholders of Cheltenham-based Hub 8. But the real story for me this week has got to be the MOT changing to every 2 years, which the government is looking at the moment. I think is absolutely crazy, and the knock-on effect for our garage industry, who the motor industry like that, who is also suffering from increased costs. The burden and why they're doing this now, and not say kick the can down the road for a couple of years, I've got no idea. But anyway, that was my story of the week that really caught my eye. Thank you very much for my panel for joining us this week. Thank you for joining us as well. If you enjoy the show, please like, share, and subscribe. And a really big thank you to Hazelwood's accountants and business advisors, who are absolutely brilliant. Hopefully we'll catch you all very soon, and we'll be back next week. Thank you. Bye.